Death Mage Chapter 103, The Disappointed Half-Vampire and the Mad Purebreed Vampire. TLN, Fitterg's head speaks separately with separate dialogue lines, and they speak differently, too. One is super polite, usually speaks first. One is polite with some hints of casualness, usually speaks second, and one is quite casual, usually speaks last. Despite having no scales, Vandaloo had acquired the title of Scaled King. The Scaled King title was normally something that Fitterg, the dragon god of 5 sins, bestowed upon those who had solo cleared the D-class dungeon known as the Lizardmen's Nest as proof that they were the new ruler of the marshlands, so apparently having scales or not made no difference. Next, though it was unclear how effective this would be, Vandaloo tried to acquire Fitterg's divine protection, or rather, make him grant his divine protection, but Fitterg had replied that it was impossible and hung his head.
What do you mean?
That is, my current state is insufficient.
Divine protections are normally things that a superior being bestows upon an inferior being, so.
For example, it'd be effective for a fox to borrow a tiger's power, but there wouldn't be any point in a tiger borrowing a fox's power. It's kind of like that.
It was an easy-to-understand explanation of divine protections that would likely cause people to lose their faith in gods. And it seemed that Fitterg, the dragon god of 5 sins, was the fox and Vandaloo was the tiger.
I see, so you're saying that it's impossible because you haven't fully recovered yet.
The truth was that Vandaloo, who was capable of manipulating the Demon King's fragments perfectly and possessed a greater total mana pool than Fitterg, would not be so different in status from Fitterg even if Fitterg had fully recovered. In fact, it would not be strange to think of Vandaloo as the superior being, as he had more freedom with a physical body and possessed weapons that were capable of slaying gods. But this was how Vandaloo had interpreted things. Although the being before Vandaloo was prostrating himself and begging for his life, no matter how little dignity he was still a god. Gods were beings that were capable of creation, incredible miracles, and cursing people with terrible wrath. Vandaloo simply assumed without thinking that this god would be far greater than him, once the god fully recovered.
And no, even if I were to make a full recovery, I am not such a great being.
He's making himself seem small for now. He's not someone I can underestimate, Vandaloo thought, thinking more highly of him now. Fitterg could only see the gaze of dead eyes looking at him, so he was completely oblivious to this misunderstanding as well, however.
Still, when I tried to grant you my divine protection, I touched your soul, and how do I put it, its shape is.
Perhaps I could describe it as beyond unworldly.
Could it be that you've eaten one of us evil gods or one of our followers?
Fitterg did not have the state of mind to see the misunderstanding. He was too busy with having learned that Vandaloo's soul was not that of a person. The shape and color of a soul was unique like a fingerprint. There were no two that were alike, but the shape of Vandaloo's soul was simply too strange, even if the Demon King's fragments were taken into account.
No, not that I remember.
Has there ever been an incident where you touched a cursed item or something similar, and your attribute values and skills changed right afterwards?
I did read a cursed book once. My mana increased by 50 million and I became able to extend my tongue.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
The forbidden tome that Vandaloo had read after trespassing into the Mages Guild of the city of Nyarki in the Hartner Duchy. Fitterg suspected that this tome had contained an evil god or a follower of similar status, and Vandaloo had absorbed him.
Boy, spit it out. You must quickly spit it out.
Balkan, you mustn't eat strange things. You'll get a stomachache.
No, I think it'd be amazing if all he got was a stomachache, and it's not like he ate it, right?
And that was over a year ago. Is it not too late to spit it out now?
Ah, I'm getting deja vu, Vandaloo thought in a carefree manner, as Zadyrus and Rita held him upside down and shook him up and down.
Was he your friend? If so, then I'm sorry. I'm sure Vandaloo didn't mean any harm.
No, I do not believe that there were any who turned away from the Demon King who would hide in a book.
And judging from what we have heard about that book, it seems that there was a trap that takes over the minds of any people that read it.
Quite frankly, he got what deserved, being absorbed like that.
Fidurg seemed satisfied now that he had solved the mystery. The truth was that Buberjura, the evil god of the magic tome, had been an evil god who was part of the remnants of the Demon King's army, so he was not a companion or friend of Fidurg. He was an enemy. And of course, Fidurg felt no sense of racial unity with the other evil gods, so even if an evil god from the same foreign world as him were to be annihilated, as long as they weren't allies, he would simply feel happy that he had one less enemy.
However, I believe that this is one of the reasons I cannot grant you my divine protection.
In fact, Fidurg was grateful that there was now a proper reason that proved that he wasn't simply refusing to grant a divine protection, because he didn't want to regret it later.
I see. Well, it's impossible, so it can't be helped.
That's right, it can be helped.
Indeed. How about you raise your heads now?
Everyone other than Vandalyu was a little intimidated by Fidurg. They couldn't tell the difference between the two by the size of their mana pools, so they feared Fidurg, who was the dragon god of 5 sins, more. One might wonder why they feared someone who was prostrating themselves, but considering that this pitiful being was a monster that was larger than a castle, it was understandable. No matter how pitiful and miserable it looked, for Vigero and the others, a god was still a god.
Then please grant your divine protections to the lizard men and suitable individuals from Talasheim instead. In exchange, I'll place a statue of you in the church.
The statues of Alda and his gods had all been removed, so there was plenty of space in the Church of Vita.
This is something that I could not have even wished for.
This is something that I could not have even wished for.
This is something that I could not have even wished for.
An increase in the number of people praying to him would mean that the recovery of his power would accelerate. It made no difference to him that he would not be the only god worshipped by those people.
Also, I have a few questions, so please answer them.
I understand.
And so, Vandalyu and his companions came to know the truths of what had happened 100,000 years ago that almost no people of the current age were aware of. They had acquired a certain amount of information about the past from Ternisha, whose soul Vandalyu had already broken, but she hadn't been in a particularly prominent position during the battle between Vita and Alda. In contrast, while Fidurg had not been particularly influential, he had been the commander of a battalion. Most importantly, Ternisha had lost more than half of her sanity, so the fragmentation and distortion of the memories of the distant past was severe. But the memories of Fidurg, whose mental structure was different from those of mortals, were almost completely accurate. Vandalyu and his companions learned of the achievements of Zakart and the other creation-minded champions, and the circumstances surrounding their destruction at the hands of the Demon King. They learned of the state that Zakart had been in when he became a parent of the true ancestor of the vampires. And they learned that Xantark and the other subordinate gods had fought on Vita's side, and now they were scattered all over the world. Vandalyu had thought that Vita and her allies had been more alone while fighting against Bellwood and the other champions, so he was happy to learn the truth that she had many allies on her side. And the fact that some of her allies were those who were considered to be evil gods was a greatly beneficial piece of information. The fact that they could be negotiated with was valuable as well, even if they weren't Vandalyu's allies now.
Well, I won't be negotiating with Hiharu Shukaka, though.
This was only natural, as Hiharu Shukaka was responsible for his father's death. According to Ternisha, he had sent a divine message with an order to kill Vandalyu, and it didn't seem that he would be interested in talking things out either. Incidentally, as one would expect, Fidurg was unaware that Vandalyu's soul was a combination of Zakart, Ark, and the other creation-minded champions. Despite being a god, he did not possess the eyes to know the 100,000-year-old history of a soul by simply looking at it.
So that is what happened. They never did anything good, did they, those people of Aldous?
Wouldn't this cause chaos among Alda's believers if it was known to the people on the outside? What do you think, Van?
It's probably impossible for us to convince anyone of anything.
That's true. Vandalyu is a Dampier, Bastiasan and the others are ghouls. I am a spirit and Leviathan and the others are undead. And the one who told us this information is an evil god.
Everyone here was someone who would be persecuted at best, slaughtered at worst, by the believers of Alda. The peaceful faction would likely listen to Vandalu's words, but it was difficult to imagine that they would believe a truth that was inconvenient to the gods and heroes they worshipped, a truth that was different to the truth that they had believed as soon as they had become conscious. And the source of this information was a grotesque evil god. There wasn't a single piece of hard, immovable evidence. Even if you were to wear a magic item that made it impossible to lie, which Vandalu wasn't sure existed, people would simply think, the poor thing, being fooled by an evil god and being made to believe such lies.
Now then, I'll ask another question for a change of mood. You seem to be on Vida's side now, but why is it that you didn't have the lizard men worship Vida?
Vidurg's own revival was important, but Vida's revival should have been much more important to him. Despite that, there were no signs of the lizard men having worshipped Vida. Their generations passed more quickly than those of humans, but there still should have been remains of shrines. Tens of thousands of years have passed since Vidurg created a dungeon to produce lizard men to be his followers. If he'd made even a tenth of them believe in Vida as well during that time, wouldn't Vida's revival have progressed more as well? Vandalu thought. But Vidurg had a unique, proper reason for this.
That is true, but that would have been harsh on me.
Vida did indeed seem to have had her divinity taken from her by Alda, but even so, she was one of the most well-known goddesses in this world. Even now, there is a steady number of worshippers who pray to her.
But I'm a nameless, evil god. If I don't make my own believers, nobody would pray to me.
In other words, it seemed to be a problem of how well the gods were known. Even now, there was a steady number of believers in Vida who were not members of the races that she had created. Despite the beliefs regarding the races originating from Alda's followers, Vida was still considered a goddess of equal rank to Alda and significantly respected. But Vidurg's name was nowhere to be seen in historical records. Because he was a nameless evil god, there was absolutely zero chance of people coming to believe in him through normal methods. In fact, when he had awakened, he had found that he had no followers at all. That was why he had made the lizard men worship only him. Having believers of other gods praying to him would have provided him with some power, but he would gain more power if those believers worshipped only him. And even if Vidurg had made the lizard men pray to Vida, it would have made a great deal of difference to him. But for Vida, it would only have been a drop in the bucket. To give an extreme example, it would have been like pouring half of the water in a cup into a lake.
I see, I understand now. Now then, about the other fragments of the Demon King.
Vandalu and his companions asked question after question about the Demon King's fragments, the other evil gods that had joined Vida, the gods such as the sun giant Talos, the current status of Vida's new races, the situation of the continent's southern region and Vida's current state. But what Vidurg knew was limited to what had happened up to the point that he escaped the battle with Vida 100,000 years ago.
In any case, I slumbered for tens of thousands of years after that, so I do not have the slightest idea as to what the others are doing.
I did search the area that I can see, but that's limited to half of these marshlands. Just 100 years ago, I did get the feeling that I heard something. But by then, I'd already been sealed by Luvisfall, the raging evil dragon god, so it might have just been my imagination.
However, I do believe that Mububujanj, the evil god of degenerate corpulence, is within the noble orc empire.
The evil god of octopuses.
TLN, the kanji reading for degenerate corpulence, is Japanese letter / dako, which can be a variation of Japanese letter / tako, which means octopus.
No, degenerate corpulence. It means to become degenerate and fat.
For a moment, Vandalu had thought that this was a god of fishermen and marine products, but it seemed that he was actually a god who ruled over corpulence. The Boar Beast King had betrayed the beast god Ganpaplio and used the power given to him by the demon king Gujiranis to give birth to the orcs and noble orcs. The orcs had apparently been created first, and then the noble orcs created after them in order to act as the orcs' commanders. But the Boar Beast King had been defeated and sealed away by the champion Farmon. After that, the Demon King had failed to find a successor to the Boar Beast King and apparently assigned numerous subordinates, including Mububujan, the evil god of degenerate corpulence, to command the orcs and grow their numbers. And so when Mububujan had accepted Zakart's invitation, the noble orcs and orcs that had been serving him then had changed sides as well.
Are they allies?
Ma, then they could have executed him, instead of exiling him.
The ghouls, who had suffered greatly at the hands of Bugogin, and the ghoul king Vandalyu were not pleased by this. They likely didn't have any ill thoughts against the noble orc empire, where Bugogin had been defeated in a power struggle and essentially exiled. But they didn't know to react if the noble orcs were to suddenly tell them, "We're actually your allies, Buhi-Buhi."
And we were going to have a noble orc buffet once things settled down in the marshlands.
Everyone was looking forward to it, too.
Vidurg shuddered. Noble orcs were rank 6 at minimum, and 100,000 years ago, there had been no small number of noble orc individuals who had surpassed rank 10. Even now, their empire likely possessed more military might than medium-sized human nations. But Vidurg could clearly imagine Vandalyu and his companions turning that empire into a pork buffet.
Well, they were allies in the past, but it is uncertain as to whether they are allies to us now.
After that battle, there might be some who went off to do as they pleased, though I cannot say for certain.
But I think it'd be best to check.
This was quite a strange viewpoint, but Vidurg couldn't provide any guarantees on Mububujinja's personality, either. The relationships between evil gods who had formerly been in the Demon King's army was such that they would steal each other's achievements and betray each other when given the opportunity, so there were no bonds of trust between them. They had communicated with each other to some extent after accepting Zakart's offer and changing sides, but apparently, they had simply been acquaintances from the same place. There had been some exceptions where evil gods had good relationships with each other, but most of those relationships were described as abnormal. It seemed that because they were evil gods, even if they were all gods, their mental structures were all different. And although Vidurg didn't know this, there were those like the pure-breed vampires who obeyed evil gods, such as Ternisha and her 2 former partners. They changed sides once, but now that Zakart and the other creation-minded champions had been destroyed and Vita had become unable to act, there was no being certain that they would be allies.
Well, I understand. Let's try making contact when the time comes.
Not right after you return.
There's a place that I personally want to visit before that. I don't think it will take that long, though.
I see.
More importantly, this is the last question. Would your power be useful for creating a homunculus?
Vandalyu's question contained an enormous amount of silent pressure, as if to say, if it would, then hand it over right now. Vidurg cowered instinctively as he answered.
Homunculus, I am not well versed in alchemy, so.
Even when I created monsters, I could only create lizard men. After that, I left it to the dungeon.
I think I could manage making one with scales.
Scales?
I didn't have any scales, did I?
The 2 of them could only shake their heads in response to this very disappointing answer. Vandalyu returned from the Scaled King's nest, having acquired resplendent treasures and the Scaled King title. The lizard men swore absolute loyalty and obedience to him. Perhaps due to the effect of the Scaled King title, some of the lizard men had started to become affected by demon path enticement. At this rate, the lizard men would be able to remain loyal citizens of Talasheim for 1,000 or 2,000 years, as long as Vandalyu still lived. And now that his leveling had finished, he set about with Elenora and Bellman surgeries. Name Vandalyu. Race Dampier Dark Elf. Age 8 years old. Title Ghoul King, Eclipse King, Second Coming of the Demon King, Guardian of the Cultivation Villages, Holy Son of Vita Monstrosity, Scaled King, New. Job Demon Guider. Level 68. Job History, Death Attribute Mage, Golem Transmuter, Undead Tamer, Soul Breaker, Venom Fist User, Insect User, Tree Caster. Attributes. Vitality 1438. Mana 815,878,554 plus 163175710. Strength 601. Agility 552. Stamina 806. Intelligence 1663. Passive skills. Superhuman Strength level 5. Rapid Healing level 8 level UP. Death Attribute Magic level 9 level UP. Status Effect Resistance level 7. Magic Resistance level 5 level UP. Dark Vision. Demon Path Enticement level 1. Chant Revocation, Level 6, Level UP. Guidance Demon Path, Level 2, Level UP. Automatic Mana Recovery, Level 6. Strengthen Subordinates, Level 6. Venom Secretion, Claws, Fangs, Tongue, Level 5, Level UP. Enhanced Agility, Level 3, Level UP. Body Expansion, Tongue, Level 5, Level UP. Strengthened Attack Power while unarmed, Small. Enhanced Body Part, Hair, Claws, Tongue, Fangs, Level 4, Level UP. Thread Refining, Level 3, Level UP. Mana Enlargement, Level 2, Level UP. Active Skills. Bloodwork, Level 3. Surpass Limits, Level 7, Level UP. Golem Transmutation, Level 8, Level UP. No Attribute Magic, Level 7, Level UP. Mana Control, Level 6. Spirit Form, Level 7. Carpentry, Level 6. Engineering, Level 4. Cooking, Level 5. Alchemy, Level 5, Level UP. Unarmed Fighting Technique, Level 6, Level UP. Soul Break, Level 8. Multicast, Level 5. Long Distance Control, Level 7. Surgery, Level 4, Level UP. Parallel Thought Processing, Level 5. Materialization, Level 4. Coordination, Level 4. High-Speed Thought Processing, Level 4, Level UP. Commanding, Level 4. Plant Binding Technique, Level 4, Level UP. Thread Drilling, Level 5, Level UP. Throwing, Level 5, Level UP. Scream, Level 4, Level UP. Dead Spirit Magic, Level 4, Level UP. Insect Binding Technique, Level 4, Level UP. Blacksmithing, Level 1. Artillery Technique, Level 3, Level UP. Unique Skills. God Slayer, Level 6. Grotesque Mind, Level 6. Mental Encroachment, Level 5. Labyrinth Construction, Level 6, Level UP. Demon King Fusion, Level 2. Abyss, Level 1. Demon King Fragments. Blood. Horns. Curses. Experience gained in previous life not carried over. Cannot learn existing jobs. Unable to gain experience independently. There was a noise resembling the sound of a ripe fruit being smashed, and blood, flesh, and bone fragments scattered across the ground.
HYH, Guberman-sama has gone mad. Please calm yourself, Guberman-sama.
The one that the blood, flesh, and bone fragments had belonged to was a vampire, as were the others who were watching, completely petrified. They were all noble-born vampires who had all lived for at least several hundred years. These were vampires worthy of being the villains in epic heroic songs, and the tales of saints that the protagonists would fight difficult battles against and only barely managed to defeat. They were the powerful noblemen who haunted the darkness of the utmost depths of the underworld. But right now, they were pitiful creatures that were screaming and trying to escape a single old man.
What is this? Do you have complaints about my actions? You bastards, you are traitors, aren't you?
Guberman glared at the vampires with bloodshot eyes. A beautiful, ladylike vampire woman gave a blood-curdling scream. In the next moment, her entire body twisted limply and fell apart, as if it had been ruptured.
Run, we're going to be killed.
UWH. NOOO, help immediately.
Letting out tears, nasal mucus, and screams that would normally be let out by their victims, the noble-born vampires fled. Guberman showed no signs of giving chase.
Every single one of you, you traitors, even though I, Guberman, have given you eternal life through my blood, Birkin's dogs.
He was cursing these vampires as if he intended to put a hex on them, but there was no proof that any of them were traitors. In fact, Guberman was an ally of the purebreed vampire Birkin. There was no evidence or information that suggested that Birkin had any intention of harming him. But Guberman had convinced himself that Birkin was trying to turn him into a puppet, just as he had tried to do to Turnisha, and that some of his subordinates had betrayed him and joined Birkin's side. These were nothing more than delusions created by Guberman's paranoia, but none could make him open his clouded eyes. The bonds of trust between the purebreed vampires that worshipped Hiharu Shukaka, the evil god of joyful life, had barely held together up until now, but now they had collapsed entirely. For Gubeman, even the vampires that he had given his own blood to could not be trusted. Gubeman had spent a large amount of time indulging in his own hobbies. Unlike Ternisha, who had exceptional, highly loyal retainers known as the Five Dogs, he had no subordinates that he could trust. In fact, he had become unable to even remember the names and faces of the vampires that he had killed just moments earlier.
At this rate, that Burke and Will, what am I to do? Oh, that's it. There is no need for me to surround myself with those that I cannot trust. So then I simply need to turn all of my subordinates into undead, do I not?
Gubeman's warped, twisted mind gave birth to the most terrible of ideas. But he himself had no doubts whatsoever that it was a good idea, and he quickly began gathering the pieces of flesh before him with space attribute magic.
These would not be fit to add to my collection of undead heroes, but no matter. I am magnanimous after all, hehehe. My subordinates can now become a part of my beloved collection. I am sure that they would happily offer me their lives. After all, I am the one who granted them eternal life.
Name Zadarus. Rank 8. Race Ghoul Wizard. Level 70. Job Philosopher. Job level 51. Job history: Apprentice Mage, Mage, Light Attribute Mage, Wind Attribute Mage. Age: 297 years old. Has undergone age reversal. Passive skills: Night Vision. Pain Resistance Level 3. Superhuman Strength Level 1. Paralyzing Venom Secretion Claws Level 2. Increased Mana Recovery Rate Level 7 Level UP. Mana Enlargement Level 2's new. Active Skills: Light Attribute Magic Level 8 Level UP. Wind Attribute Magic Level 7 Level UP. No Attribute Magic Level 3 Level UP. Mana Control Level 7 Level UP. Alchemy Level 4 Level UP. Chant Revocation Level 4 Level UP. Multicast Level 3 Level UP. Surpass Limits Level 3 Level UP. Housework Level 1 new. Monster Explanation. Ghoul Wizard. A race title that can only be achieved by ghouls who have exceptional skill in multiple attributes of magic and have performed much diligent study. Almost none have appeared since the ghoul race was born, and there are almost no documents recording their existence, even in the archives of the Mages Guild. However, their existence was recorded in the notes of an ancient philosopher, and according to his description, they are wielders of fearsome magic while also being wise leaders. However, many researchers believe that he confused these ghoul wizards with ghoul elder mages, and are skeptical